Welcome back to the show, everyone. I want to give a shout out to one of my clients, which obviously I can't say that person's name, who basically said that my microphone in the last episodes was clipping, which means
Oh,
that my gain was too high, so I needed to reduce. So
does
it's
that
really
mean like
funny.
parts of your audio would just drop out? Is that what
Would
clipping?
clip, yeah, I
Oh,
guess,
okay,
or
okay.
like it would just, yeah, like go out. And so he insisted that at the top of our session that he put my gain, he helped me adjust my gains to the right
Oh,
place.
oh,
So
nice,
I'm hoping that that's better for all
nice.
y'all, for our Marvel friends.
Yep.
And thank you to that person, you know who you are,
And how important that
who,
is. Like I just got a new laptop and I so easily could go to meltdown with that. And my
yeah,
dear wife who understands and used to be a third grade teacher, which is very useful.
yes,
Just all right, we're going to do this one step at a time.
yeah.
I'm going to help you. Yeah, so that's that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for helping with the microphone. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of connected to like making it right, right? So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
something
yeah,
like,
yeah. Hey,
right?
nice segue. Ah, look at
It's
you.
not usually me. It's usually Dana who like really brings those, like connects those threads.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Dana and I, as we often do, we often have a little bit of a warm up before we
Hmm.
press the record button because we're catching up on, our life and talking about some of the issues that, we're kind of experiencing
Hmm.
professionally and,
Sure.
um and this theme of acting with justice.
Hmm. Hmm.
The way that I've described this in my practice is that so many of my clients have these kind of value-based behaviors, meaning
Hmm.
it is what's right, so therefore I do no matter what. No, that's fair. That's equitable. That's oh my gosh, I hope we don't get canceled. I just
Yeah.
used the word equity.
Yeah. Oh
Heaven
my
for
God. Have the doors breaking
Oh
down.
my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
diversity and inclusion don't. Oh my god, I just screwed us, Dana.
Every time I comment or do something on a post online that is butting up against that, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, come get me, you bastards. Oh, is
Yeah.
bastard a swear word? That's not a swear word.
I don't know. I
No.
mean, I think no, I don't think so. I'm not let's put it this way. I'm not moved to have to
I'll
censor
write
it.
it down. Okay, good deal. Good.
So maybe
All right.
that's a judgment call.
But that
But
idea
yeah.
of like what is right,
Yeah.
what is you said you used the word values,
Yeah.
which is such an interesting thing because when I was in grad school, we learned and doing this Adlerian lifestyle analysis thing that I learned, we identify like family values,
Yep.
like my family clearly valued education, you know, not telling other people about drama in the family. You keep that to yourself. Hold that
Oh,
close to your chest. Being on time.
yeah.
You could say that those are things like that the whole family holds and that they emphasize, right? And then there's values we talk about, neurodivergent or autistic values, this sense of what is right and wrong, what is just, right? What is what comes up against that, and why is that hard? And it goes beyond just like this logic reasoning of, oh, I'm going to line up these arguments and see which one has the longer list or whatever. This sense of what Adlerian therapy calls social justice, and it really is sort of like um, not not hurting other people for like hurting's sake. Inclusion is in, you're right, it's all these words that they're sort of having a war on: inclusion and safety and providing help to those that need it, those kinds of support, all that kind of stuff. That when something goes against that, it goes beyond our logic reasoning. It's really just upsetting. It sort
Yeah.
of is like part of my brain can say, this is these people doing it. This is, I can't really get into why they're doing it because I can't rationalize why it would be a bad thing to want to help people. You know, but that sense of like every time something happens, that tweak of upset, like, oh God, there it is again, and feeling helpless about it, like with the political climate things that are going on now. And I see this in myself, certainly, but in my clients, right? It's causing significant distress. And then what do you do as a therapist to help that? You can't just say, well, don't read the news. Can you meter your dose somehow? What are things that you can do? And I've really struggled with this even as a therapist. I'm like, yeah, you're right. This is messed up. Notice me not say the F
You
word.
that self-control,
I'm
Dana,
really
is
just really good. Yeah.
incredible. I'm watching you, and
I've had
it
my
was like
caffeine this
holding
morning.
back a
Yeah.
wave of a
Yeah.
wave.
Yeah. Right. So how do you that can cause real distress. I can remember like as a kid and even ooh, just got a weird little head swim there. So maybe holding all that in isn't good for me. That sense of like at work, for example, when I feel like someone I work with isn't doing the right thing. Something that I posted on TikTok yesterday, people were responding to, and someone said, "Oh, it makes me insane when people at work like drop something or they don't do it." And I said, "Oh yeah, in that same vein, like someone at work who's supposed to do something and they don't, and then they continually don't do what they're supposed to do, but they get
Yeah.
away with it." That's that sort of like thing as a kid. Oh, it's not fair. It's not fairness. And I can remember my own therapist saying to me, "Life isn't fair," and I was so pissed at her
Yeah.
when she said that, and she was
Yeah.
right. But that sense of it's supposed to be just and correct and right. And, and people can argue that and say, well, by whose token? It's like, well, you shouldn't hurt someone. You shouldn't kill someone. You shouldn't, do stuff just for fun or whatever it is. That sense of fairness is so ingrained and is so deep. And for me, it's where I've gotten to the point where I have to acknowledge it in my head, but I can't spin on it all the time because it's all I would do, right?
Hmm.
And so I see some clients doing that where it's continually every day, all the time, especially if they belong to, we're checking all the boxes of minority status for folks and that sense of real fear behind it.
Yeah.
How do you get a larger handle on it or an overarching theme so you can at least contain it somehow? That's different for everybody. So it can be a little bit of a moving target. Maybe for someone it is laying off of all social media and just reading, three headlines in the morning. For other people, that's going to be more anxiety provoking, and they just have to do what they want to do and then figure out a way to deal with the anxiety. But those are real headbutting things that I see and I've run into with myself and then the neurotypical world in terms of what is going on here. It just doesn't. This is wrong. And then have other people in my life say, oh, well, yeah, you're right, it's wrong, but, we have to do this thing. And I'm just like, I just feel like the whole fiber of my being will be like, I'm just not doing it then. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah. And Dana, like, I think the other thing that I observe is even like bigger
Mm.
sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
like drone, like bigger, like drones. I used
Yeah,
to say
like,
eagle eye. Maybe I
yeah.
should go back to eagle eye. But, like just kind of like stepping back, even like more than that.
Mm.
Something that I observe in many of my clients is that person is a jerk, and
Mm.
he has a job, he has a fiance,
Yeah,
he has his own place, and look at me.
yeah,
I'm still at home. I'm struggling.
yeah.
I'm unemployed. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have friends.
Yeah,
What is the justice in the
yeah.
world?
There isn't any there.
You
There
you
just
know what
isn't. It's not a fair fight.
right? And so I feel like that just thinking, justice
Mm-hmm.
thinking, right, really permeates and can permeate this self judgment.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
too, and it's hard. Like, I will say, as a therapist, I struggle to not minimize or diminish, because I think when a therapist says, there's a couple
Mhm.
things that I really dislike what therapists say. One
Mm.
is, well, life just isn't fair. I hate
Yeah.
that. I would
Yeah.
never say that to someone personally, nor would I say that to someone professionally.
It actually hit the mark the day my therapist told me that, but yeah, I mean, there was
Yeah.
some context around
So
that.
some
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I shouldn't say never,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
probably have said that in with a certain context, or with
Yeah.
just like helping us challenge kind of maybe some thinking or something, like, so,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. But what do you say
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
this person, which is, yeah, that beeping sucks.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. How do you validate it, but also you can't really fix it because those things are out there. You know what I
They
mean?
exist everywhere. I mean, I think as a
Yeah.
neurodivergent person,
Yeah.
it always feels like the world is out against you, right?
Right.
It's hard to be in the world.
Right.
They've got to work really, really hard to be in the world, to do just
Yeah.
everyday things, like,
Yeah.
talking about groceries and our little acts of resistance. And like, there are
Mhm.
some people
Mhm.
that can't give up their Amazon.
Right.
Like, they can't get out of their homes, or they need to preserve their energies in order to
Yeah.
do the things that are meaningful. So, you know what
Well,
I'm saying? Like,
yes, along those lines. So the protests, the marching that happened last weekend, the
the
hands
hands
off
off. Yeah.
protest,
Mm.
um, we didn't go for a bunch of reasons, but some of it was just a sensory thing and some other issues. But we were sort of doing our part by paying attention to what was going on all these various social media platforms, to be a witness, to hit like so those posts will get pushed up the feed or
Yep.
whatever. But what I saw a lot of in there were people feeling bad because they weren't out there, and these are folks that are saying things like, I'm disabled, it's too hard, is it okay for me to have not gone, sort of like you're saying, is it okay for me to continue to use Amazon, but I don't shop at X, Y, and Z store anymore because I do want to. You can't do everything, right? Is it okay to just I hate that word, but just um, do what you can do and then not have to self-efface or shame yourself for not doing what you thought was the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So folks that said they didn't go, and then they might say, I was feeling good about not going, and then I saw this person who had to be helped into a wheelchair and they were there. But if you continually judge your own behavior based on that, you can always find something that is going to be like more chivalrous or just, or there's not a good word for that, than you could
Mhm.
ever feel comfortable with,
Yeah.
right? It's sort of there's this obscure line in Bull Durham after the two main characters finally get together, and she's talking about being who she was in a prior life, and he says to her, "Do you ever notice how everybody in a prior life was somebody famous? Why aren't they just like Joe Schmo?" And it makes me think, like, why are we always having to be held to these standards of like this famousness or the most extreme, like that's that performance porn that we talked about, like inspiration porn. This person walks on their tongue, and look, they walked across America on their tongue. I mean, I'm being really ridiculous here, but
Yeah.
and then the rest of us are supposed to feel less than by comparison. That sets up this impossible goal, right? And there's a little bit of that happens more naturally in an autistic and a neurodivergent brain than necessarily a neurotypical brain, because it's constantly something that we really think about, and we don't know exactly why. Maybe it's some of how we're wired, but that sense of how do you deal with that disappointment, or yeah, the guy who's a jerk, who's all into flashy show and money and status and that kind of stuff. Look at, he's got all these things and I don't. That sense of not being able to aspire to that. But you know what? The majority of people on Earth are not doing that. When they did estimate of how many people in the U.S. wide had protested, I think they came up with a figure about 5 million, and I was
Mm.
like, that's a lot of people. But there were a lot of, if outside of those 5 million, how many people didn't go at all because they felt like they couldn't handle it? Probably more than 5 million, I'm
Yeah.
guessing,
Yeah.
right? So that sense of always comparing to the just of things is like this impossible task. And so if you can have that be a frame, then you can give yourself permission sometimes to like let it go. But if you just go to the, oh, you need to let it go, there's nothing you can do about that. That feels patronizing, or it feels like you're not seen, or it feels like you're giving up. Everybody has to find their place to be able to let something go. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
different for everybody, right?
it reminds me of like a potluck.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
anyone that's like ever done a potluck, right?
yeah,
You bring whatever you can contribute a lot of times, right? You
yeah.
know, you bring a main dish, you bring a dessert, you bring napkins, you bring drinks, you
Mhm,
bring
mhm.
cups, you bring what, like whatever. And that, but collectively,
Yeah,
like I have never been to a potluck where I was like, wow, we ran out of food. Like
yeah.
I've
Or if you
every,
wanted to eat everything because you
right,
don't. There's certain things you're gonna like and other things you won't.
right.
Yeah.
But it's like collectively there's an abundance. Like there's an
Mhm.
abundance of things. I've never been to a potluck
Yeah.
where there has been a shortage of like food or like drink or something. Like it's been,
Mhm,
you
mhm,
know, and I just think, as we express ourselves here, what
mhm,
do you bring to the potluck? And it doesn't have to be the main dish and it doesn't have to be the dessert and it doesn't have to be,
mhm.
because the reality is no one's eating any of that stuff unless someone brought the plates. Like
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
like I feel like I'm seeing that kind of,
Yeah, it also,
sitting with some of that.
yeah, I'm thinking of some of my, and I hate, I swore I'd never do this when I got older, say, well, some of my young people, because I don't mean it to be feel diminishing that way. People maybe that haven't had enough years to have the life experience of some of my students who are neurodivergent really getting spinning, and I spin too, so I don't mean that in a judgmental way, about an injustice happening like in the classroom where a student that maybe is somewhat neurodivergent oppressive gets more attention, or that's the thing that's elevated in the classroom instead of the other way, and them feeling really upset about it. And I totally get the upset, totally get it. There's a part of me when I was younger that would say this has to change, this isn't, and really have a lot of pain about it. um, each person has to figure out for themselves which hill to die on, right? And those are real individual questions that you have to ask, right? And you're right, not every hill can be died on. And it does feel really crappy when you give up in something. I had a headbutting with someone I work with. We were going to do a professional conference together, and I won't get into all the details of what happened. But I had a high stakes thing in there that person didn't want to do. And it really, I mean, I spent like 3 days in full on shutdown. I just didn't feel anything. I was just like staring into space. And I'm like, and this is the first time I really experienced that as an adult, knowing I was autistic. I'm like, what the hell's happening to me? I'm like, oh, this is shut down. And then I didn't go to the where we were going to give the presentation. That was a really hard decision to make. But my wife helped me reason it out. She's like, in this case, it goes up so much against what you think is right. How are you going to feel if you go? How are you going to feel if you do that and then you don't bring this really important part of yourself to this thing?
Hmm.
And I decided that is a hill I need to die on. It's that important to me. And I backed out, which I've never done something that big,
Yeah.
involve travel plans and everything else. And then there's been other things that I'm like, it's okay to just, I'm not going to lose sleep over this, but other things you will lose a ton of sleep over.
Hmm.
Um, and knowing that probably those are going to be some of your thing as a neurodivergent person that you're going to continually have to deal with in life, right? And
Yeah.
right now with what's going on politically, that's right there every day with the headlines and everything else. It's mind-boggling how many headlines are about people getting hurt, right?
Yeah.
Way more
Yeah.
than we've ever seen before. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's unpredictability, which is
Mhm.
awful,
Oh God. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We don't have predictability or consistency like globally.
Yeah, and
Um
normalizing really bad behavior,
yeah.
right? Some people might not be old enough to remember there was I'm blanking on his first name, but do you remember Dean? Was a governor or a congressperson who ran for president? Howard Dean. He got too
Mm.
excited at a rally one day and was kind of yelling and going, yeah, and it ruined his candidacy. One day on the trail, he lost it a little bit and got super excited about something, and he just started losing state races to get to the presidency. Where where have we come from that to what's going on now? And
Yeah.
it just all being normalized. So that really, will come up against someone's sense of right and wrong who's neurodivergent. It's just everywhere all the time. And
And
again,
it's a
yeah, not just
flood.
in the US, it's everywhere.
It's
Yeah.
global. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're seeing, because I know it's might be difficult for some people to wrap their heads around it, but
Mhm.
we aren't just like the United States doesn't live in a vacuum.
Yeah. Right. 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 Exactly. Yep.
Like what
All human
happens
behavior. It's
here
all getting there. Yeah.
has domino effects here, and
Yep.
now the poor penguins. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I listen. So I think there's a flood. There's a flood of information that is
Mhm.
triggering a lot of discomfort and a lot of, and I'll just say stress.
Yeah.
Like stress is probably what I see, the chronic stress that I'm seeing. It is just zapping people's resources
And
all over
hard
the
to find
place
a place of safety. You could
of
say, well, it'll
reprieve. Yeah.
pass.
No.
Well, we've been here before, and look what happened in Germany. I mean, that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, are we headed there again? So there isn't a good place of soothing around this to get to, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, all this to say, I mean, and this is what I also admire, which
mm,
is, there are times when there are things that my clients don't want to do, but they know it's the right, quote
mm,
unquote, the right thing to do for them in that moment.
right.
Um, and they do it
Yeah,
despite
yeah,
themselves. And I just think that there is something kind of really remarkable about that.
yeah. That's right.
But, yeah. I mean, I wonder for our Marvel friends, do you have this sense of justice?
Yeah,
Like how deep does that run for you? Is it a switch you can turn off? Is it, these types of
yeah, yeah.
things?
It's so hard. It's so
So
hard.
hard.
Yeah, yep,
So
yep,
hard.
yeah.
All right. All right, friends. Well, be good to you and be good to others. We're adding that.
Because that's
Um,
within your control to be good to others.
100%. 100%. And we will catch you in the next episode. Bye everyone.
Bye.